You can build an element or a module once and then have it be reused again and again in all different contexts by non-technical people. And then developers are able to spend their time focusing on much more interesting and much more valuable problems instead of just building content pages.
Welcome to the Milk Bottle Shopify e-commerce podcast, brought to you by Milk Bottle Labs, Ireland's top-rated Shopify experts. Milk Bottle Labs build, upgrade, migrate and market Shopify and Shopify Plus stores all over the world. Milk Bottle will migrate you onto Shopify with zero interruption, guaranteed, or optimize your Shopify store and maximize store sales. This podcast is kindly supported by our favourite Shopify app and the only app we install in every store. Rewind.io is the leading backup solution for your Shopify store. We'll talk more about Rewind later. Now over to your host, founder of Milk Bottle Labs, Keith Matthews.
Hey folks, welcome to episode 11 of the Milk Bottle Shopify e-commerce podcast. Today I chat with Finbarr Taylor, CEO of Shogun, a Shopify page builder that helps Shopify store owners easily build out new pages for their Shopify store. So let's go. Finbarr from Shogun, thank you very much for joining me today. It's 9 o'clock with you, so what part of San Francisco are you in?
I live just south of San Francisco in a city called San Mateo.
And is that, what sort of commuting distance is that from the Bay Area, from the tech hub?
It's about 20 miles south of San Francisco. Yeah, it takes maybe half an hour on a good day with traffic, up to an hour on a bad day. A lot of startups have moved now to San Francisco, but traditionally the Bay Area and the peninsula south of the city was where all the tech was happening. So that's where I've been for the last 7.5 years.
Is it kind of similar to London, Dublin, where a lot of the tech companies are kind of moving outside the city to try and to hire and to also to avoid expensive rent and traffic? Is it just the same in San Francisco?
Yeah, San Francisco is unbelievably expensive, but surprisingly, the Bay Area has become similarly expensive in the last few years. So the prices are not that different now. It's the biggest problem in this area. A lot of people are moving away because of the cost, but it's still a great place to be in technology.
Very good. I met you guys at a recent Shopify event, and you guys are showcasing your Shogun app, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But when I was doing my research on you, a couple of keywords just kept coming up. One of them was Pebble, Y Combinator, Groupon, Exec. Just give us some sort of indication of your experience. I mean, you've got a super resume. When you mention Groupon to people, it's kind of, one of those whales that is kind of forgotten about by a lot of people. In Pebble, in Y Combinator, Groupon, Exec, what was your main role and what was your core role within those organizations?
So at Groupon, I was a software engineer. I was actually working on their order management systems, which gave me a pretty nice foundation in e-commerce. At Pebble, I was doing something very similar. Again, it was kind of order management systems. I helped them with a couple of their big Kickstarter campaigns. So the launch of Pebble Steel and the launch of Pebble Time, I was building systems to kind of help manage the influx of orders and process shipping and all that kind of stuff. At Y Combinator, I was also a software engineer. I was working on evaluating applications and, I built the first version of Startup School, which is their kind of big online course for startups, and a whole bunch of other software just to help them run their process. It's actually quite a small team at Y Combinator, and they get many thousands of applications, and they couldn't run without software. So software is kind of an integral part of what they do. So historically, I've been a software engineer in the Bay Area.
Very good. I'm interested in the Groupon piece, actually. Would you believe it? In 2012, my first startup was a Groupon clone in Bermuda, of all places.
No way.
And we successfully launched the smallest Groupon-style portal in Bermuda. And we did quite well, actually, for a while. The Pebble story, Finbarr, is a kind of a sad one for a lot of, I suppose, technology heads, over 30.
Yeah.
It was the last of the kind of small-time technology company hoping to make it big. At what stage were you in the Pebble organization? Was it in the early days, around their first or second Kickstarter campaign, or was it when they were well mature?
I was a contractor there twice, each time for a stretch of 3 or 4 months. And the first time I joined them, there were about 30 people, I think, around 30. And it was just when they were about to do the Kickstarter for Pebble Steel, which was their second Kickstarter. And so I helped them rebuild their, systems to kind of manage those orders. Second time I joined them, they'd grown quite a lot, and they were just gearing up to do the Pebble Time. For the promotional video for Pebble Time, I'm actually in that video. You can see it. I think there were probably about 100 people at that time. And then, I helped them kind of launch that, and then I went on to working on other things. And then obviously they kind of changed their focus, and we all know the story. But they were a very cool company.
Is it true that one of their campaigns was the most successful Kickstarter campaign ever?
Yeah, I think they actually took that record twice or thrice. They sort of bested themselves with the Pebble Time campaign. Yeah, I think they raised something like $20 million on Pebble Time. Internally at Pebble, we were all kind of taking bets as to how much it would raise, and it vastly surpassed everyone's expectations.
Yeah, it's a pity that we're talking about it in the past in light of, privacy issues, and, Shopify have had their own issues recently with MailChimp. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of that. Yep. It's just such a pity that it didn't last. But I suppose sometimes it just doesn't work out. Maybe timing is a factor too. So, look, that's a great intro to your resume. And don't get me wrong, this isn't an interview. I very rarely go through people's resume in detail, but you've a really interesting background. The Finbarr, you originally come from Glasgow. I have a bit of a soft spot for Scotland, but Edinburgh in particular. I've got family over there. And I remember being in Glasgow about maybe 20 years ago, and they had just kicked off this wonderful kind of city regeneration program. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, how did that go? Like, did it continue? Like, they were basically planning one of the coolest cities in the UK. Did that go ahead?
Glasgow has absolutely transformed in the last decade. A large part of the transformation occurred when Glasgow became the host of the Commonwealth Games. I think that was in 2014. They really invested very heavily in sprucing up the city at that time. But nowadays in Glasgow, it's a really cool city. There's trendy restaurants and bars and all kinds of great things going on. I love Glasgow. I think it's a really awesome city. If I wasn't living in the US, I'd probably be living in Glasgow. It's really a great place.
I spoke to you, I think it was at Christmas. So do you get back 3 or 4 times a year? Or?
Yeah, so I tend to go back at least once a year, and I go for a long stretch. So I was there for 3 months last year, October, November, and December. I recently had a daughter in the US who's 9 months old right now. And so we try and take her back to see family. But 3 or 4 times a year would be a bit much. Traveling with a young infant is really tough.
Firstly, congratulations. You're dead right. It's a game changer when you're traveling with kids. So Finbarr, Shogun, how long are you guys in operation?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story, actually. We started in early 2015, but it was originally a page builder for Ruby on Rails. And we kind of stumbled into Shopify by accident around October 2015. So we've been on the App Store since October 2015. And actually, we were working on it part-time until May 2017. And it just grew and grew and grew for us.
Very often, Finbarr, app developers will make a pivot or create something and completely go down a different path based on, experience. Was your focus all along to make a Shopify store editable for the non-coder? Was that your focus from day one?
Yeah, so the reason that we originally came to Shopify was a friend of ours who had a Shopify agency said to us, hey, what you have is really cool, but I wish it worked for Shopify. It's really hard to edit the front end of all these Shopify stores that I'm helping my clients with. And so it was an agency that kind of took us in the beginning. And since then, we've been picked up by a whole range of different customers, ranging from solo entrepreneurs all the way up to like Fortune 100 companies, and a lot of agencies and experts that support those clients as well.
So Finbarr, if I was an agency to use Shogun, would I be using Shogun because of the templates you provide and it saves me going to a developer? Or am I using it because it basically saves me having any development talent inside or outside the building? Does it actually allow you to remove the need for a coder or a developer?
So typically it doesn't remove the need. When we work with much larger clients, like Shopify Plus stores and other enterprise stores, they typically don't have technical expertise in-house, and so they work with an agency. And the way that we work with agencies is agencies will come in and they will set up a new project on Shogun, and they'll use this feature that we have called custom elements that lets you make your own custom reusable drag and drop elements. And so developers come in, they make those, they perfectly match with your theme. And then every non-technical person in both the agency and the customer can drag and drop and build these beautiful pages with these amazing looking elements. It's kind of like Shopify sections on steroids. It works on all page types. It has a lot of really nice workflow efficiency tools surrounding that. So we don't remove the need for developers, but what we do is we reduce the amount of time that developers have to spend on building content pages. You can build an element or a module once and then have it be reused again and again in all different contexts by non-technical people. And then developers are able to spend their time focusing on much more interesting and much more valuable problems instead of just building content pages. So that's kind of the collaboration that we typically see.
Do a lot of your users just purchase a very basic Shopify theme or even use a free theme? Like, I think Debut is free.
Yeah.
And then add Shogun to it and then turn it into an out of the sandbox turbo by using your page builder, or is that completely inaccurate?
So some people do. I mean, the way people use Shogun really varies. Anyone with a custom built theme is typically working with a developer or an agency. You don't have to. Shogun provides you a whole bunch of elements out of the box, and they match with theme styling to some extent, and then you can customize the appearance of them to get it really close to your theme styling, and in many cases match perfectly. And so solo entrepreneurs or smaller stores are often coming in. They're either using a free theme or they're paying for a theme, and then they are using our out of the box elements, customizing those to look how they want for their theme. But Turbo by out of the sandbox is actually quite a good example. We kind of worked with them and we made a demo where you can recreate all of the sections that theme provides as custom elements in Shogun and then drag and drop them. And they kind of wrote quite a nice article about it. It just gives you a lot more power and flexibility with what you already have. And there's a wide range of ways of using it, depending on your expertise and budget. Yeah, the resources available to you.
You've got some users that are actually using it to build out full sites, but you've got other users that could be on the base $19 a month plan just to add a couple of pages.
Right, exactly. Yes, some people have built literally their entire stores in Shogun. The best example is probably Lisa.com, the mattress company. They have an in-house development team and they use Shogun to build a whole bunch of custom elements that match perfectly with their theme. And they told us that it cut down the amount of development time by 90% for the developers. They used to have 6 developers working full-time just on making content. And now those developers are working on much more important things like improving the site performance. Their content marketing team can then use the elements that those developers made to build really compelling pages. But yeah, it ranges from people using it for just 1 or 2 pages to people using it for the entire store.
Kind of an obvious question, Finbarr. I know the answer to this because I know that you're clever enough not to do this, but there's no fear that your app is going to layer on excess code and slow down pages or anything. I'm assuming it's designed with all of that in mind, is it?
Absolutely. We get asked that question all the time. And in fact, one of the big things that Lisa spent a lot of time looking at before deciding to use Shogun was the performance. They had their team really stress test the tool, and they came away satisfied that it doesn't negatively affect performance. All the pages are hosted by Shopify. So, if Shogun goes down, your pages stay up. We're not in the load path for any traffic, and everything is served, optimized, and it's all super fast.
Let's take a short break, and I'll share the number one app we install on every Shopify build. The team at Rewindio have developed the leading backup solution for your Shopify store. Did you know that there is no way of recovering lost data from a Shopify store? So what does Rewind do? It automatically backs up your store data, and in the event of a data loss, usually due to human error, Rewind enables you to rewind the store back to its previous state. It's so simple, and is used by some of the world's leading Shopify agencies, such as Kurt Elster of Vitacycle and Kelly Vaughan at the Taproom. If your store is gaining traction, you may have multiple users making changes. Often store owners allow theme or app developers enter a store to add code. Sometimes mistakes happen and data gets deleted. So you can reduce your business risk today and prevent a costly catastrophe by installing the Rewind.io app. Get your first month of Rewind for free. Simply respond to any of the welcome messages or emails you receive after you begin your 7-day trial and mention this podcast. Now, Back to the interview.
It's amazing within the Shopify ecosystem. You know, everybody will tell you that Shopify is a game changer, and then another app comes out that's a game changer. But I mean, this is allowing the most basic of store owners that are just too busy in their day to do the things they should be doing website wise and too busy to learn how to code. It's really giving them an opportunity to improve the look and the feel of the store and ultimately sell more. So I mean, well done on that front. It's a fantastic idea. Looking at your app in the Shopify App Store, you're heading for 1,400 reviews, which is just wonderful. I mean, pretty much they're all 5-star. One thing then that would lead me to believe is that you have a pretty decent support structure.
Yep.
Just give us some indication. I know that you have a distributed team, but in terms of your actual team that's supporting the customers, what sort of structure have you got there?
Yeah, so we have a fully distributed team, about 25 people right now in 12 or 13 different countries all around the world. Our support team, there's 7 full-time support team members, which lets us provide 24/7 coverage. Several of them are front-end developers, and we have support in the United States, United Kingdom, Australia, Jamaica, and India right now. And if you read our reviews, so many of the reviews reference the fact that we have incredible customer support, and it's something we take extremely seriously. You know, we strive to kind of solve all problems within a few hours when possible. Even on the kind of lowest tier plan, you can email us, and typically we're resolving things within 3 or 4 hours. And so, yeah, we really have invested very heavily in our support. We use tools like Front, which is like a multiplayer inbox, really good for support. And we also use Intercom for live chat support on our higher tier plans. And then for kind of some of our partners and larger clients, we've even set up shared Slack channels where they can just interface with our team directly.
Yeah, Intercom is another great Irish success story. I believe a good few staff are in San Francisco. Have you met those guys at all socially, or have you met them in town?
I haven't. Maybe someday I'll get to meet them. I do see I'm pretty sure they've had billboards in San Francisco. Or I might be thinking of another company called Outreach, but they're certainly well known. You know, they have a great product.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. It's spread like wildfire. So fair play to the guys that are running it. Have you developed anything interesting, or have you updated the product in the last while that you can share with us?
Absolutely. So last year in March, we went through Y Combinator actually as a portfolio company, and we ended up raising a seed round of $2 million, and it's allowed us to invest very heavily in our product team. And so we now have a full-time engineering staff of about 14 people and several designers as well. So in the last year, we've completely revamped our design, and we've been working very hard on some major new product features. Shogun traditionally has been a tool that has helped you to build pages, but not really understand how they're doing or optimize them without using other tools. We're changing the focus to be a tool that helps you build, measure, and optimize your pages. So within Shogun, you can understand how every page is actually performing, and then optimize that performance by running A/B tests and other things in the future. And so those features are going to be released in the next few weeks. It's been a huge amount of work, but we're very, very excited to kind of, reveal those to customers, many of whom have been waiting for months for these features to come out.
That kind of brings you in a different direction then, because is it safe to assume, Finbarr, then that if you're providing analytics and you're providing A/B testing, effectively then you can bring that task, which some would see as a kind of an outsourced marketing task, in-house again then and deliver it through Shogun for smaller businesses? Is that the kind of direction that you see it going?
Not necessarily. I think people still will kind of go to outside expertise, because you still need to understand what to test. It's very well having this framework that lets you test, but what you are usually paying for when you go to an agency or an expert is the years of knowledge and the years of experience in what works well and what doesn't work well. And so, you can take a lot of shortcuts by working with an outside expert. Some agencies that we work with, provide those services of, optimization, conversion rate optimization. And the options in the market right now for doing things like A/B testing are quite expensive, often prohibitively so for their customers. And so Shogun will provide a much more cost-effective option that's seamlessly integrated with Shopify in a really kind of end-to-end way, where the existing tooling is not integrated that seamlessly, and people end up combining several tools together. So for some people, they might be able to bring it in-house. For other people, they'll just continue with what they're doing, working with agencies or experts. they'll have this much easier to use tool and much more affordable tool to do so.
Yeah, the whole A/B testing area is still, I think, at enterprise level, really, isn't it? It's still not quite accessible by the SME business owner. Maybe that's just a perception, or maybe it's just because, I suppose, lack of education. But, you're right there. The tools are complex, and, you have to be very process driven, and you have to have the expertise to carry it out properly. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. In many cases, we're bringing A/B testing to Shopify a much lower price point than it typically exists right now. So yeah, it's very, very excited to release that in the next few weeks.
That's good. Well done. Look forward to that coming out. One area which is extremely difficult, I suppose, to get right for most software developers is the pricing of their product. And I think within the Shopify ecosystem and the Shopify App Store, there's a lot of really, really good services that start out as free, and then for a very small nominal fee, they can upgrade to a premium service. But a lot of the apps, I suppose, they're low end. A lot of them are under $20 a month. In terms of your pricing, has it gone through an evolution? Has it gone through a change? Or have you had any challenges with pricing, given the kind of free environment around Shopify?
Yeah, so pricing is one of the biggest challenges that we have. We've spent a lot of time thinking about how to solve the problem. One of the biggest mistakes that we've made as a business is priced our product in a way that was all you can eat at the kind of price level that we currently have, which is starting at $19 a month. And so we actually have a lot of very large customers, huge public companies using our product today, paying us like $20 a month with their entire teams using it. And so it's great that they're able to do that and get so much value from us and get so much value from using the tool. But it doesn't really make sense for us to kind of do that as a business because the support costs of those users and the amount that they use the product is much larger than average, and they tend to have different wants and needs as well. And so we have been going through a process of trying to figure out how to price effectively. The best resource that I have discovered on this is by a guy who works for Stripe called, I believe, Patrick McKenzie. And it's called the SaaS Pricing Guide or something to that effect. It's on Stripe's blog. But there's a lot of really good resources. I think that we'll be changing our pricing soon. We'll still have a kind of entry level, which is very affordable and gives a lot of value. But there'll be some usage caps on it along the line of how many people can be using the product. And so that's kind of how we're going to fix our pricing. But, there's a lot of different ways to figure out pricing. There's many apps out there that price in all different ways. It is hard to compete in the Shopify ecosystem because people, you can go on and find a lot of apps that are very, very cheap and think, well, why should I be paying money for an app? But yeah, I guess, if I was a big company, the one thing I'd be really careful about is, what kind of legal entity are you actually dealing with when you install an app, and where are the terms of service? In many cases, there are no terms of service and you have no idea what kind of legal entity you're dealing with. So, I think that's one way that you can differentiate as a kind of real company, as it were. But it's certainly a challenge because the perception is everything should be cheap.
We get the same on the agency side, in terms of pricing. It's a challenge all of the time. I worked in telecoms for quite a few years as well. Once all you can eat was released, 7 or 8 years ago by the US telecoms firms, kind of spread worldwide. So it's just a flat fee for a massive service. It's a challenge for the company that has to create the underlying technology to support that service at a very low price. With your particular service, I think it's even more difficult given that you have, as you say, public companies and agencies using it. In terms of your service, is there room for you guys to possibly offer kind of a managed service and customized templates? Or is that moving down the road of an agency, which is maybe where you don't want to go?
We're really in no rush to do that. Of course, we get asked to do that regularly, and we just refer clients on whenever they ask us for those kind of services. We're not really in the business of being a services company. And there are other people that have become experts in how to provide services around our tool. And so it's not something we're in any rush to do. I think it would just change the business dramatically. We really are a software company. We're investing very heavily on making a really amazing product, taking it to multiple platforms. Yeah, I don't think we'll be providing managed services anytime soon. We do end up providing a higher tier level of support for enterprise customers, onboarding, training, regular check-in calls, that kind of thing. But right now we don't provide kind of page creation services, which is something we get asked for quite often. I've
spoken to a couple of app developers, some of the larger ones around Toronto, and would you believe it, they went down that kind of, I think agency route is probably a proper explanation, but they've pulled back from it. And now they just refer requests like that elsewhere because, as you say, you're a software company built on a monthly revenue model. It completely changes things if you're carrying out tasks for customers based on time, and your staff are, it's hard enough to get development staff to write for your product, let alone start servicing customer needs. Completely different. It's a step change in your business. Listen, thanks so much for a really, really insightful, really interesting conversation. In terms of yourself or in terms of Shogun, do you have any immediate plans in the future or anything to get really excited about?
Yeah, so, right now we're on 2 different platforms, Shopify and BigCommerce. We're also, in the works expanding to a couple more platforms like Salesforce Commerce Cloud and Magento, as well as kind of all the product changes that I mentioned. So I think it's going to be an exciting time for us. The e-commerce space is really, really hot right now. I think we've been very lucky to have landed here. And, it's now just a lot of hard work to keep pushing things forward.
To carry out those plans then, Finbarr, you'll have to increase staff, won't you? That's a big investment to pretty much cover the top 5 major platforms, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big investment. I think we're having to work with some external experts to help us do some of these launches because these platforms are extremely complex. It's a lot easier to launch on Shopify and BigCommerce than it is to launch on these other platforms. Okay. But eventually we'll get there. We'll just keep on doing what we do, which is listening to our users and making the product better and better.
Great. Well, listen, Finbarr, thanks very much for all of your insights. And listen, the best of luck in the future and keep it up. It's one of the most successful apps in the Shopify App Store, and it's successful because you're really good at what you do. So well done.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for listening to the Milk Bottle Shopify e-commerce podcast. All of our episodes are available on Spotify and iTunes. We really appreciate the support of our sponsor, Rewindio, the leading backup solution for your Shopify store. Get your first month of Rewind for free. Just respond to any of the welcome messages or emails after you begin your 7-day free trial and mention our podcast. Until the next time, take care.